Thank you for letting me get into the Dreamers Huddle. I'm all about dreaming. I'm all about vision, and I think those two things go right hand in hand. So, I feel like I'm in the right plot. I'm in the right spot, man.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. I'm fond of your work, even the short time of knowing you, man. I'm fond of who you are. Your energy, your vibe just came off right. I wish I would have met you earlier when I was actually on the East Coast. I lived in DC for about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It would have been great to connect with you then. But hey, God has a way of bringing people together whenever He wants them to come together. So let's talk a little bit, man. Before we get into all the vision stuff, man, let's tell people a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you like to do, hobbies, where you're from.
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, man, anytime you come through to DC, we can link up. So
Absolutely.
I'm born and raised in the DC DMV area. I am a lover of Christ, first of all. I'm a believer, and that influences everything I do, especially when it comes to what we're going to talk about today when it comes to vision. Um, I love to play basketball. I love sports in general. I tell people all the time, what do you watch on TV? ESPN. That's the
I'm
only
right there
TV
with
I
you.
watch because
Right
I
there with
really
you.
got time to watch a lot of other shows. Um, but also, I'm a lover of dreamers. I know that my calling is to help people to be the optimal version of themselves. And I know
Yeah,
that there's dreams, there's visions, there's callings that lie inside of each and every one of us. And it's just
absolutely.
my mission to create what I call the vision economy, where we are all working together to be platforms for each other's visions. So I have a company, digital media company called Build Your Vision. It's helping visionaries, innovators, creators who have innovative ideas, help them with their digital communication so that that platform can inspire other people, and so that other visions can be built on top of it. So I've been doing that for about 3 years now. As Coach Lou said, I'm also a coach. So I coach a lot of those clients that come through our company, and I'm also a podcaster. So I
Yeah,
host the Build Your Vision podcast, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's all about building
yeah,
your vision,
yeah.
and I just love to help people through that process. So that's a little bit about me, man.
Cool, good deal. So every coach I have on, and like this is a coaching platform for maybe you are tuning in for the first time. This is a coaching and inspirational platform. So I call myself a PCS coach: purpose, creativity, and spirituality. Right. So I'm a self discover. I tend to focus heavy on self discovery and creativity.
Hmm.
Right. But the spiritual aspect is definitely there, because I obviously, for those who follow me, they know I'm also a spiritual leader. I'm a pastor, a new pastor at that. So this is the question I ask to every coach that comes on, every guest that comes on, to add value to. And the question is, when it comes to chasing your goals, ambitions, or even vision casting, what would you say are some keys to doing that?
Yeah, I live by. So it's funny. So I just got a scholarship to I3, right?
Yeah,
So, but I have a I3 model that I teach by as well, and it's identity, influence, and then income, which equals impact. So
mm,
the first step in that I really, really harp on is identity.
yeah,
Some people might call that mindset. Some people might call that self-discovery. I think it's all interwoven in there.
absolutely.
But knowing who you are, whose you are, and who you're called to serve is huge in
Yeah,
that vision casting process, because you can't. The biggest thing with casting vision is that you have to be convinced yourself. If you are not convinced yourself, you ain't convincing nobody else.
absolutely. I tell people all the time, you can't chase identity and purpose at the same time. You have to
No,
know who you are.
you
Yeah,
have to know. So that first step in self-discovery, like you're talking about, with what you do with your coaching, man, is super,
yeah.
super important. So I have a challenge that I do called the Find Your Why Challenge,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you're familiar with Simon Sinek.
Oh yeah,
Um,
oh yeah.
Start with why.
Hmm.
And he also has a sequel, but it's really more like a prequel, to start with why, called Find Your Why.
Hmm.
And that book, man, it really changed how I started going about what I was doing. And
Yeah.
I turned it into a challenge. And I try to get through a lot of my clients to go through this process of finding their why. I think even Dr. Daniel says if your why don't make you cry, you know, that you need your why to make you cry in order for it to
Right.
be. I added a little bit to it. I said if your why don't make you cry, the motivation go and die.
Come on, man. Say that again. Somebody need to hear that again.
If your why don't make you cry, the motivation will die. You
That
know,
is good.
we can get
Yeah.
inspired, we can get motivated, but if you don't have that internal compass of like, this is why I'm pursuing this path, stuff is hard. I mean, doing God's work, doing what you feel called to, building a
Yeah.
business, helping people is hard, and you need that why in order to do it. And going through that process can be extensive. It doesn't happen overnight, but I encourage everyone to start there, man.
Yeah. Helping people is definitely hard. A lot of it's because you're dealing with so many different types of mindsets. And if we're being honest, the reason people are coming to like people like you for coaching, or people like, or coaches like me, is because they have limiting belief systems. You know, they're trying to cast vision, but it's that imposter syndrome, or can I really do this, or should I be in this room, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes trying to coach them past that is tough.
Yeah, it probably is the
really
hard.
tough.
It's probably the hardest part. And the funny thing is, though, you know, we're in a market with the kind of coaching that we do, where it's not like, you know, someone can search on Google, I need a plumber because I know I got a problem with my plumbing, or I need an electrician because I need. So with coaching, with the kind of coaching that we do, the person might be coming for a certain problem, not realizing that's not their real problem.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so they're coming to you like, so for me, right? It's like, you know, I need help with podcasting, or I need help with social media engagement. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but I know from just, you know, doing a call with them, or whatever, I'm like, we're not dealing with a social media issue. We're dealing with a confidence issue. We're dealing with a mindset issue. We're dealing with a imposter syndrome issue. So it's really interesting doing that, because usually you have to draw back a little bit. Like, okay, this is what's happening. These are the symptoms, but let's get to the root. And usually the root lies in identity.
And you say that so eloquently and so good, man, because one thing, and I didn't really pick up on it rather until Thrive, when I was in Coach Brittany's session, and she talked about trauma-informed coaching. And I deal with a lot of people who come with creative blocks. So most of my creative or creativity coaching is for people who, I want to write a book, but I can't get past this point, you know? And I had a client who was like, man, chapter 4 of my book is about this situation that happened in my life, but I keep getting stuck. I don't know how to write it. So I started talking to her about the situation. And in my head, I didn't say this to her because I wanted to be careful. In my head, I was like, oh, that's trauma. The reason this creative block is happening is because you haven't dealt with that trauma, you know? And I didn't realize it until I went to Thrive and sat in Brittany's session. I was like, yeah, that's why I decided to take it upon myself to actually go get a certification in trauma-informed coaching, because when I run into this, you know, I can help. Okay, let's put the creative stuff on the side right now. Let's talk. Let's coach through that trauma, because that's the root of the issue. You know, that what you're saying is spot on. It's spot on. Where you really sometimes you end up coaching, you know, a lot of. And the thing about the coaching we do as well, Clee, is a lot of times we say we're like, I can say I'm a self-discovery coach. You can say you coach, you know, vision and things like that. But if they're having relationship issues, they'll never get to the vision because they're stuck. So you got to become a relationship coach in the moment, you know?
Yeah.
You got to become a career coach. You know, so I want a podcast. And then you start talking to them, it's like, let's talk through what your gifts are, because maybe podcasting ain't it. You know? So now you become a career coach. So it's that clarity and that discovery really becomes broad depending on who you're dealing with, and
Yeah,
it's a really unique niche
absolutely.
that we tend to deal with. Yo, what's up, family? Just wanted to pause real quick and let you know that yes, the website is up and live. Go over to www.giftedtoglory.com and check out all the latest content. Right, we building a brand, y'all. We have blogs there. We have the latest podcast episodes there. And listen, right there, you will be able to invite me, yes, Lou, to come do a Gifted to Glory tour right there at your church, in your city, at your college, wherever, where I take you through an intensive how to take your gifts, your passion, and your talents and optimize them so you can monetize them. Yeah, go check out the website right now. That's www.giftedtoglory.com for all our exclusive content. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel and don't miss any content that we have going. All right, now back to the episode. Yeah, so let's talk visioneering for a second. You know, when it comes to vision casting, what are some methods that you use or that you suggest, you know, when it comes to vision casting? And that can be on any level: casting to a team, vision casting of yourself, etc.
Yeah, yeah. So I usually, like, everything starts with why for me. So I like to get to and you might have, going through Dr. Daniel, some of this stuff, we go heart, head, hands.
Right.
So I do that when communicating with anybody. So whether it's to an audience, whether that's to my team, or whether that's even to myself, I have to start with, okay, what's the heart of what is happening here? And why does it matter? And why is it important? Then I go out to, okay, and I like to distinguish this. I even do an episode on this where it was funny. This is a quick little story. So I used to work in radio. In fact, I just left the industry this year. And I'm a little nerd when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? So I'm over here I'm doing like case studies at work. People don't know I'm doing case studies, but I'm out here asking questions and stuff. So I went around, research. Right, because we were having some problems with like some promotional and marketing things. Mm-hmm. And like I said, my biggest question is always why? What's the purpose of what we're doing? Are we trying to get engagement? Are we trying to get likes? Are we trying to get reach? Are we trying to get people to come into a funnel? What are we trying to do here? So I went around and started asking people. I said, hey, what do you think the mission of the company is? Mm-hmm. And I pretty went around the whole company and asked this question. And I came back around a second time. And I said, well, what do you think the vision of the company is? And people were so perplexed. They were like, didn't you just ask me this question? Or they would say some type of something or some type of close related message to what they had told me prior, right? So I like to distinguish the difference between a mission and a vision. A vision paints the picture of the dream. A mission is the plan for the dream. The why is the purpose for the dream. So yeah, why is the purpose for the dream? The vision is painting the picture of the dream, and the mission is the plan for the dream. Yeah. So whenever I'm vision casting, that's how I go about it. I try to hit the purpose first. This is why this is important. This is why it matters. Here is the vision. I want to paint the picture so that there's buy-in. If there's not buy-in, you're not going nowhere. So I need people to understand this is the picture, so you can see in your mind's eye, this is what happens. And then I go with mission. This is how we can go about accomplishing the picture. I know over and over again, I started with the mission. I'm like, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. And people are like, okay. And that could work if you're using authority, but I think the best leaders use influence. So that's how I go about my vision casting. Yeah, the why, the vision, and then the mission on the latter end.
Yeah, and what you're saying is so important, particularly because even though I'm kind of in this phase or in this season of revamping not my coaching, but who I coach rather, because I was leaning heavily on creatives, right? But I started to figure out, and working with my coach, who's Jamila, my business coach. She was like, when I started explaining to her, she was like, "Well, why are you limiting yourself to creatives?" And I started giving her my vision. I mean, the vision, the mission, the why. She was like, "No, you don't need to just be dealing with creatives. You need to be saying anybody who's trying to get to the top of their field, educationally, corporately, creatively, whatever field sector they work in, ministry wise, your principles and your blueprint works for that." Because the idea that she opened me up to was the idea that you could be doing a lot going nowhere, right? And that's kind of when I'm hearing you talk, the why, that question is so vital, because people don't even know why they're doing something, and then when they actually answer the question, they're like, I just wasted a bunch of time because my why doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. Imagine, I mean, somebody telling you like, "Hey, I need this house clean." You're like, "All right, cool. Okay,
Right.
that's the mission. Okay, clean the house. Fine." So you go about cleaning the house, like, they just told me to clean the house. You hear a knock on the door, and it's the ambassador of Egypt at the door. And you're like, "Well, you could have told me the reason why I was cleaning, because it was an ambassador showing. That would have been really important information,
Right.
Like,
and because you would have done it differently.
I would have did it differently.
You can clean the house. Okay, I'm gonna just clean it. I'm gonna do a surface cleaning. But if the president shows up, hold on. I'm wiping the walls. You know what I'm saying? You making sure,
a whole new approach.
Exactly.
A whole new
approach. Exactly. That's the word I was looking for. Approach. The approach is different. So
yes,
absolutely. That why question is vital. If you're watching right now, listening, you have to know your why. I mean, that it makes so much sense, because your why really is the prerequisite to the mission, and that's so good, man. That's so good. That model that you have I believe is spot on. So with vision, because you can kind of put vision and clarity in the same family, right?
Yes, sir.
Because you have to be clear. I say, when it comes to, when I deal with individuals, there's two things you got to be clear on: who you are and what it is that you're called to do, right? Yeah. So when it comes to vision and clarity, they're kind of like twins to me. So why is clarity about who you are, rather, is that how? Yeah, okay, we can stay there. How is clarity about who you are important to the vision casting process?
Oh yeah, I mean, like you said, they're twins. Maybe fraternal, but they might be identical.
Yeah.
And that's why I love, I chose the name Build Your Vision happenstance. Like, I just was like, I think I like that. I think I had no idea God was going to lead me in this direction. I came up with this name while I was in college. I wasn't even planning on doing a business like this.
Yeah.
But it has duality in its meaning. When you think build Absolutely. Your vision, the first thing that comes to your head, okay, I'm building something like a dream that I have in my mind, right? Build your vision. But I'm also talking about what you see, your clarity. We need to build your vision. How are you seeing? Because how you see shapes what you believe shapes your behaviors, what your behaviors shape your results, and your results go back to how you see. It's a cyclical thing that happens over and over again. If we don't get the sight right, you're never getting out of the cycle. So clarity is huge. I always say clarity cures a multitude of sins. Even if you reveal everything is negative, at least we all know. So when it comes to getting clarity, I have this weird way I go about it. I'm actually going to be teaching in a training next week, so I'm really excited about it. But I approach it this way. Are you familiar with Donald Miller?
I've heard the name. I don't really know who he is. Other people have referenced him, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, Donald Miller. He's an author, but he also is, he was most famous for his coined story brand framework when it comes to marketing. And he has a book, I believe, called Marketing Made Simple. And it exposed this concept to me of this hero and guide kind of diagram. So a lot of times in business, and I'll get back to clarity, but I'm just going to use business as an example.
Yeah, sure.
we position ourselves as the hero. When I say ourselves, I mean the business owners.
Right.
Like, I'm here to save you from your problem.
Hmm.
His approach, which I think is the right approach, is like, no, the customer is the hero. You are the guide. So every story that you see that has a hero, there's usually some guide that helps that hero turn into the hero. They're never the hero when they start off, right? Spider-Man was not, or at least let's say in the new Marvel series, like, he had to come under the tutelage of Iron Man, right? In this
Right.
past, like,
Tony Stark, yeah.
Tony
right.
Stark, right? Or, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker,
Right.
or Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. What's the guy's name?
Mr. Miyagi.
Mr. Miyagi, right?
Yeah.
Every hero has a guide that helps them become who they've always been meant to be, right?
Right.
And when we position ourselves that way, we are able to get more sales, actually, when we make the hero the customer. So I was looking at it and I started applying it to my everyday life. And I realized that if the customer thinks they're the hero, I'm also a customer in lots of different ways. I think I'm the hero most of the time too. And I realized in everyone's story, you are the main character. I don't care how selfless you are. I don't care how giving you are. Even when you give because it makes you feel good. You don't like, at the center of every decision you make, you are the center.
Yeah.
So I start positioning myself in my brain, okay, like, if I'm the hero of my story, how would this play out if I treated every single day of my life like it was a movie, or like it was a episode in a TV show or something?
Well, you speaking my language, because that's how my mind works, bro. For real. Like, I love movies, I love arts and stuff. That's how my mind works. That's how I live. Like, I create these. Go ahead, man. But yeah, you speak my language,
brains, bro. Right brain dominant, man. So I started positioning myself as the main character, and I realized, okay, well, let me get clear. And Stephen Covey talks about this, his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, beginning with the end in mind, right?
Yep.
So I started with that. I was like, okay, let's say this movie starts off with the obituary. What do I want said at my funeral? What do I want the legacy to be? And I started with that. So that gave me clarity toward the end already for myself. What do I want to happen, right? What's his name? Is it Derek Sivers? He says, call the destination and ask for directions. I love that quote.
Yeah.
So you're calling the destination. Now you can figure out how to get there, right? So now you have clarity of the end. So the next thing that I like to think of is, okay, what's my character outline? There are a few ways you go about this. If you've been through Dr. Daniel's programs, you might have done this. I think even he's talked about it in Daniel's Den.
I've been through so many of his programs. Only thing I haven't done is I3 yet, really.
Okay, so yeah, you probably so spiritual gifts, man, and ministerial gifts.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say it gave me a new level of clarity. It did, but the more so the clarity came from freedom or affirmation.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm supposed to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I always encourage people, okay, begin with the end in mind. Now let's figure out what your character outline is. Who are you? How has God created you? What special gifts has he given you for you to do the work that you're supposed to do? And just the acceptance of those things gives a new level of clarity.
Yeah. Bro.
Go ahead, bro.
No, bro, you are in my coaching modules. Like, literally, I have 6 modules. I do 6 months. I take them through 6 months. And you're in like my third month module, man, because I tell people the 2 greatest gifts God gives you is the gift to create and clarity. Why? Because they both give you freedom.
Freedom, bro.
They both. I can create. Why did God create Earth? Because he was free to do it. He could.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you get clear about who you are, you get free about who you are. So you don't have to capitulate to anybody. You don't have to, you really stop caring what people think about you in a way. Like, you become comfortable with, this is who I am.
That's who I am.
You know, as long as I'm not hurting anybody, it's okay to be myself, you know? And I got to go here real quickly.
Yeah.
This is vital in the church world because particularly when you grow up like me in a very traditional, rigorous type of church setting, rather, you what's the word I'm looking for? It'll come to me. You kind of have this idea like I'm supposed to be a certain way.
Yeah.
So I can only dress like this. I
Yeah.
can only, talk, have a certain way I talk. There's a certain way. Now, granted, there's a certain way you live based on biblical standards, right?
Right.
But if it's not biblical, I can kind of live within the realm, the barriers, the borders, of that, where as long as I'm not immoral, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But living the church's way, I felt like, okay, I had to. There's the only way to dress, earrings and stuff I couldn't wear. I was a church boy, so I couldn't get my ears pierced. But now you see, in today's age, where some of the most influential spiritual leaders are some of the most fashionable, creative, and they don't. You can tell they don't have that rigidness about it because they're free. They who they are. They know who they are, and it doesn't have a vast effect on their message because their message didn't change. The gospel is the gospel. They're not living immorally. They're just being who God called them to. Their style, their persona. So
for sure, I'll tell you something funny too. That's funny as you say that, and I think it's so important because your difference is the thing that is going to make you the most effective for who God's called you to be.
Absolutely.
A funny thing. So when I came across Dr. Daniels, I believe in 2020, it might have actually been the height of kind of the craziness that was going on in 2020. COVID was going crazy. I think George Floyd had just gotten murdered or something. Stuff was just going on. And he did a message, I think, about social justice, which he doesn't really go into that a lot,
Right.
I just had seen him though. He popped up on somebody might have shared what he was talking about. The first thing, I didn't hear a word this man said. The first thing I said, I was like, "Whoa, dude is fly."
Right.
I like his fit. I'm gonna watch because I like his fit. I'm trying to see what he got on. Then I started listening to the message. I'm like, man, this dude could speak. And then I started saying, okay, well, what's he speaking about? And then I got into his world. But the first thing that I noticed was what he had on, man, his style. And imagine if he was up there in a suit and tie because he's a pastor and he had to be that, archetype, right? I probably would have just swiped past. And my life wouldn't have been able to get changed.
Yeah.
Because he was not living in his unique difference that God called him to live into because he was trying to be someone that he wasn't. And I just think when people you are literally doing others a disservice by not being exactly who God has called you to be.
Absolutely. See, and my guy in the spiritual world was actually PD's spiritual father, which is Ari Vernon, Dr. Ari Vernon. And so when the first time I heard him, it was like 2009 or something like that. This man was preaching. He was the first pastor I seen put a bed on the stage and talk about sex in a way I've never heard a pastor talk about sex. Literally, he was talking he was talking. It was so beautiful because he's such a great orator. It was so beautiful where, me kind of being from South Central, because I have I tell people I'm a hybrid. I have church boy and I have street in me, because I just in the environment that I grew up. But if I was a church boy, I can lean into him, but if I was from the streets, I could also lean to him he's speaking facts and truth. Yeah. And it was that vernacular where I was like, yo, who talks like this from the pulpit? Exactly. And that's what brought me into me being early in my ministry, you know what? Because he gave me the example of I don't have to be preachy. I don't have to preach. And there's no wrong. I mean, like I said, I'm a church, but I love when, pastors can hoop and do all that kind of stuff. It gives me chills, but for me, it wasn't going to work. First of all, I can't sing, I don't know how to tune up. I don't know how to hoop. I don't know how to do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But Ari Vernon, just his example taught me how to use my voice on the pulpit and speak to various individuals, but one at the same time. So it being who you are is vital, man. And it's like I tell people, those I had. I don't know if you. How old are you?
I'm 24.
24. Okay, so you may or may not understand unless you got one of them old grandmothers who had this TV. Like so, my grandmother, because I grew up in the 90s, so I'm 36. My grandmother had this TV. You know, back in the day, you had the little TV that sat on the big TV because the big TV didn't work, so it really was used. But both of her TVs, when you pushed it on, you just saw a little dot. They were old school, little dot show up, and it took about 10 seconds before the dot went bloop, and it blew up into the picture.
Yep.
That's how clarity works. That's how God works. Where He'll give you, like, you have a vision. You'll see the dot. You'll say, okay, that's where I'm supposed to be.
That's good.
But the more that you wait it, the more I'll say wait it out. But while you're waiting, you're doing things. You're positioning yourself. You're taking the proper steps to be where God's called you to be. All of a sudden, the closer you get to that little dot, it just opens up.
Boom.
The vision, the clarity opens up. Like, oh, that's why you called me here. You know.
Yeah.
So that's how God works. Sometimes He'll give you that little dot just to show you start moving in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
The more you move in this direction, over time, it blows up. The clarity blows up. The vision blows up, man. And it's a beautiful thing, really.
It is.
It's a beautiful thing. So not only are you a coach, now are you business minded. You also are a social media creator.
Sure.
So I want to kind of lean into that a little bit before we start to wrap up here. And just give us some inspiration. You know, we may have, people who want, because at this point, you kind of say being a social media creator, you can make a profession out of it, right? You can get famous off of being a social media influencer, really. There's people who are making millions of dollars a year just doing social media. And it takes a lot, and it takes just as much time, work, and effort as somebody working in the corporate world who's a VP. Absolutely. Showing up every day, editing and all that stuff. So don't minimize that. People don't minimize social media influencers who's making a bank off or making the bag off of social media because they putting in work. It ain't easy. It is not easy. I struggle to get one post up a day.
It's hard, bro.
But talk about some of your inspiration. Where do you find inspiration? Where do you, or does it just pop up to you? What do you look for when you find ways to be different creators, particularly in your niche, which is Christian content, Christian content on social media?
Life, bro.
That's real.
Life. Especially coming from a radio background too. In fact, I just went out to lunch with some radio buddies yesterday, and we were talking about how we would go about doing show prep each day. You got to prep what you're going to talk about, the topics you're going to cover, and a lot of that comes from just what's going on in life.
Right.
And even some program directors will intentionally send DJs out hey, don't come into work until 2 hours, an hour before your show. I just want you to be out in the streets, get inspired, interact with people.
Yeah.
So a lot of it just comes from life experiences. I always say, even when people tell these exaggerated stories or lies and yo, I'm just joking. I'm like, every joke got this much truth in it.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it got more than that.
Yeah.
So lots of stuff in my, it's lighthearted. I like my brand to be, everyone can really enjoy it. But it's always some truth in there that I've seen from life. And I just, the biggest part for me is really, I have so many ideas. Just being a visionary is that I have to choose which ones I'm going to actually execute. I have a folder of things, and I'm just now getting into using an app to voice record and transcribe all the ideas I get. But that's pretty much how I go about it. I see something, I'm like, oh, synapse, clicks, connection, that's content. Eventually, when the more you make content, the more you have an eye for content. So
absolutely,
I see something, I'm like, that's content, write it down, and then get to it later, execute, make it into a piece to post.
Man, that's good. That's good. All right, man. Well, man, I'm glad to have you on the show. But before you get out of here, man, I want you to kind of drop all your ats. What do you do? How do people get in touch with you if they want to get some coaching? If they want to just, say, hey, I like what this dude is talking. I need help with my vision. So we call this the Dreamers Huddle because for those who tune in, for those who listen in, who want who want more access to the individuals that I bring on, they can have it, man. So talk us through where you at, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on social media everywhere at Clee The Visionary, Clee The Visionary. You can link up with me there, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I have a podcast called the Build Your Vision podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts, so you could tap in there as well. We just wrapped up season 4. Season 5's coming in 2023, which I'm super excited for because I'm over time just getting better and better at storytelling and making it an enjoyable listening experience. So I'm excited for that. So make sure you listen to the podcast. There's over 120 episodes you could go listen to if it's your first time.
And I've listened to about probably 11 of them. It's legit, y'all. Check it out.
I appreciate that, bro.
It's legit. Yeah, it's legit.
And I am having I'm having a 5-day challenge, 5 or 3-day, still deciding on that challenge. Talking about clarity, talking about consistency, talking about creating. So if you want to, get in on that, a lot of the stuff that we talked about in this episode, I will be covering in more detail about exactly the systems I use to do this on a daily basis. So if anyone wants to join that, you could go to blog.buildyourvision.co /KTC. Maybe it'll be in the show notes. It's kind of a long thing. I tried to get a better URL, couldn't. But if you want to, you could just go to my Instagram and click the link in my bio. It should be in there. And you can sign up for the challenge. But that's what's going on with me if anyone wants to connect.
All right, man. Y'all heard it. Clee the Visionary, man. So grateful for you to grace us with your presence and with your wisdom, knowledge, and insight. Probably won't be the last time we have him on the show. But
hope not, man. This is cool.
Yeah, yes, but definitely. And so you know what you gotta do if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to. Let me say this, y'all, because some of y'all, I look at my analytics. Right? Y'all watching, but y'all not subscribed. I got like 10 times as many views that I have subscribed. Y'all, it's one. Just push the subscribe button, y'all. Just push the subscribe button. How you get 100 views on the video, but you only get, it's like,
the dear future wifey podcast. You ever watch that? And he says, "Stop shacking up with us." Hit the subscribe button.